A very good morning to all. So kids, in the previous class, we were discussing about the physical features of India. And the physical features of India are the northern mountains, the northern plains, the great Indian desert, the Peninsular Plateau, the coastal plains and the islands. And we have already discussed about the northern mountains and the northern plains. So here in this class, first we will discuss about the great Indian desert. So what do you understand by desert? It's a type of landform where the area is covered with sand, and this region it receives very less rainfall. So let's discuss about the great Indian desert. This desert is also known as Rajasthan desert or Thar desert, and here you can see on the map that it is located to the west of the northern plain, and you can see the Aravalli range, which is the oldest range that marks the eastern limit of the Thar desert, and this Thar desert is extended to Rann of Kutch in south. Now this region is dry, sandy, and it also consists of sand dunes. So what do you understand by sand dunes? Sand dunes is a hill of sand in desert that is formed due to wind. So this region is dry, sandy plain and consists of sand dunes. Now some activities of this region are nomadic herding, animal rearing and the cultivation of certain crops that are suitable only in this climate. Now here you can also see the Indira Gandhi canal that is set up here to provide water from the river Satluj to the northwestern region of Rajasthan, especially to develop that region. And you can also see small streams, that is the Luni river and the Sambhar lake. So you can see both these rivers in the map. So this was about the great Indian desert. Now the next physical feature is the Peninsular Plateau. So what do you understand by peninsular? So we have already discussed peninsula means a piece of land that is surrounded by water. So here you can see the peninsula region that is surrounded by water bodies. The next word is plateau. What do you understand by plateau? A plateau is a flat elevated landform that rises above the surrounding area. So here the next feature is the Peninsular Plateau, and this is one of the oldest feature of our country. So here you can see the Peninsular Plateau is divided into two divisions, that is Central Highlands and the Deccan Plateau. Now here two rivers, that is Narmada river and Tapi river, it divides the Peninsular Plateau into two divisions. So the northern part is known as the Central Highland and the southern part is known as the Deccan Plateau. Next, we will discuss these two divisions in detail. So the first one is the Central Highlands. As we have already discussed, the northern part of the Peninsular Plateau is known as the Central Highlands, and you can see here on the map that it consists of Malwa Plateau, Bundelkhand Plateau and the Chota Nagpur Plateau. It also consists of hills like the Aravallis, the Vindhyas, the Satpuras and the Rajmahal hills. So this was about the Central Highlands. Next one is the Deccan Plateau. As we have discussed that the southern part of the Peninsular Plateau is known as the Deccan Plateau, and this Deccan Plateau is made up of igneous and metamorphic rocks. So here the volcanic activity in the past, it caused the molten rock which is inside the earth to flow out. So when it comes out, it is known as lava, and this lava it cools down and forms the lava sheet on the surface. Now this is made up of igneous rocks, and due to heat and pressure, these igneous rocks are transformed into metamorphic rocks, and these rocks are very rich in various types of minerals, and this has also helped the industries to develop. So this was about the Deccan Plateau. Now at the western and the eastern edge of this Deccan Plateau, we have the Ghats. So what do you understand by Ghats? Ghats means a chain of hills. So at the western edge of the Deccan Plateau, we have the Western Ghats, and At the eastern edge, we have the Eastern Ghats. So, let's discuss them one by one. So, here let's see the difference between these two Ghats. The Western Ghats, it lies in the western edge of the Deccan Plateau, whereas the Eastern Ghats, it lies to the eastern edge of the Deccan Plateau. Next point is that the Western Ghats are higher in elevation as compared to the Eastern Ghats. The third point is that the Western Ghats, it consists of continuous chain of mountain, but in the Eastern Ghats, they are not continuous. The fourth difference is that in the Western Ghats, no major rivers has cut across the Ghats, but in the Eastern Ghats, many rivers flows. So, here the large rivers of peninsular India, namely the Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri, that rise in the Western Ghats, they flow eastward across the plateau into the Bay of Bengal. So, here one thing you have to note that most rivers in the Deccan Plateau, they flow from west to east direction, and this is because of the slope of the Deccan Plateau, that is from 900 meter in the west to 300 meter in the east, which means that there is a tilt towards the Bay of Bengal. Here, before reaching the sea, these rivers, they deposit large quantities of silt and sediments by forming the large fertile deltas. But here one thing you have to note that the Narmada and the Tapi rivers that rise in the central highlands, they flow in the westward direction to the Arabian Sea, and here they do not form the deltas. Instead of it, they form the estuaries. So, what do you understand by estuaries? Here the word estuary means the funnel shaped mouth of the river where it meets the sea without depositing any silt or sediments. So, here the Narmada and Tapi river that rise in the central highlands, they flow westward into the Arabian Sea, forming the estuaries. The reason behind it is that these west flowing rivers, they flow across the hard rocks on their way and are unable to collect the silt, and these rocks prevent the west flowing rivers from widening their mouth into the sea, and thus they forms the estuaries. So, this was about the Peninsular Plateau. Now, the next feature is the coastal plains. So, what do you understand by coastal plains? So, here coastal plains are the flat low-lying land piece that are near to the ocean. So, here we will be discussing about the coastal plains. So, both to the east and to the west of the peninsular India, we have the coastal plains. As you can see here, in the western side we have the western coastal plains, and on the eastern side we have the eastern coastal plain. So, let us discuss them one by one. The first one is the western coastal plain that is located on the western side, and here the western coastal plain is narrow except in the Gujarat. So, you can see that the western coastal plain stretches from Gujarat till the southern tip of India, and here the northern part of the western coastal plain is known as Konkan coast, and the southern part is known as the Malabar coast. Here the plain has rocky cliffs and indented coastlines. Indented coastline means the coastlines are not smooth. Next point is that this plain has no large rivers. Instead of that, they have the backwaters and lagoons. For example, the one that Kerala is famous for. So, what do you understand by backwater? A backwater is a part of a river in which there is little or no current and is backed up by the tide or by an obstruction. Next, we will see what is the meaning of lagoon. So, here lagoon is an area of sea water along the coast that is separated from the sea by sandbars. So, here the western coastal plains are famous for backwaters and lagoons. Now, the next one is the eastern coastal plain. So, here the region between the eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal is known as the eastern coastal plain, and these plains are broad and also they are very fertile due to the deposition of silt and sediments by the rivers that also forms the large fertile deltas. And most of the rice produced in the southern part of India comes from these deltas. So, this was about the coastal plains. Now, the next feature is islands. So, what do you mean by islands? A piece of land that is surrounded by water on all the sides is known as island. So, here India consists of two groups of islands, that is the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and the Lakshadweep Islands. So, here the human beings are seen living very closely to the nature, and the islands, it comprises of 1% of the Indian landmass. So, let us discuss these islands one by one. The first one is the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Here the Andaman and Nicobar Islands are located in the Bay of Bengal Sea, and these islands are separated by 10-degree channel, and these islands are formed by the volcanic activities, and Barren Island has the only active volcano in the Indian subcontinent. So, this was about the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Next one is the Lakshadweep Islands. So, these are smaller islands that are located in the Arabian Sea, and there are 27 large islands along with many small coral islands. Here the coral islands are made up of coral polyps. So, what do you understand by polyps? Polyps are the sea organisms. So, when the polyps die, the skeletal remains accumulates on the seabed that forms the coral, and these corals forms the coral islands. Here Lakshadweep literally means 100,000. So, it was believed that there were 100,000 islands, but actually the number is only 43. So, this was about the last physical feature, that is the islands. Next, you have an activity. The question is, what do you understand by the polyps and corals that build up into coral islands? Record the answer and submit the voice clip in Teams. That's all for today. We'll meet in the next class. Thank you.